Hello there. Welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and tonight we're going to continue on in the Skylark series, and we're going to create a two-page layout. But let's do a quick recap of the first three layouts. So last week we created this layout with Waylon James, where we have a little hidden journaling inside a flip flap, and we focused on layers in the background and then creating a grid on the top of the layers. Layout number 2, we focused on Ramsey Kate when we had triangular corners and we did lots of beautiful stenciling on the transitions. We also added a flip flap with some hidden journaling and some treatments on the inside, and we did some distressing of those photo mats for a fun play. Layout number 1, we did stenciling again on a large circle as well as on some added bits. We did some stamping on some plain cardstock pieces for some transitions to jazz up the page and balance the page, and we were able to get 14 photos on one layout. This evening we're going to continue on with those same three granddaughters that have been part of this series, Avery Jean, Hattie Elaine, and Ramsey Kate. I'm hoping to get 3 large photos on the left page, 4x6 verticals, and 3 4x4s on the right page. Now I actually could add more photos. I could add 4 photos to the left and 4 photos to the right, but I actually don't have that many photos. So I'm going to stick with 3 and 3. As a quick review, I'm adding some sprigs and leaves, just 2 little pieces from that set, some of the layered butterflies from our You Are Enough collection, the fancy doilies from our Hope and Kindness collection, and the Isabella scrapbooking stamp and thin cut set for these florals, and then of course the Skylark stamp that comes right in the Skylark bundle. And I reviewed all of these, all of the treatments, all of the techniques on how I made all of the little bits in layout number 1 in the series, which I will link in the description. But that's how I came up with all of the bits in my junk gypsy tray, and then we also had that 12x12 stencil. So for this first layout, I really did not want to mess with the gorgeous pattern paper here. This pattern paper is embedded with bits, it's embedded with a tag, it's embedded with a banner, it's embedded with some little what I would call decorative strips, as well as that beautiful lagoon skylark. So I wanted to keep those intact. So I have 2 6x12 pieces, and of course it feels natural to put those on the outer edges just because of the way the embedded bits are in the pattern paper. It wouldn't quite work to put those on the exterior and interior pieces respectively, because then the bird would be in an odd position, and then also those banners would be in an odd position. So I want to add some transition strips, and we have this really cute chevron strip, and then we also have a strip from the sticker sheet, this lagoon sort of vintagey circle pattern, and I want to put those and butt those up next to the 6x12 pattern paper pieces. And I think that it's best served having that lagoon that is a little bit more of a solid next to the busy pattern, and then putting the chevron next to that. I foresee the 4 photos in a box sequence on the right page, but I do think it needs some toffee background. So I went with 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 for the toffee backgrounds, and I went ahead and made one of those for the extra space. I often will, if I need another filler photo, I'll use a duplicate photo, like I'll use a photo twice, but this time I just wanted to stick with the 3 and the 3, and we'll see how I handle that here. Now in the layout number 1, I created a 3 by, I think it was a 3x11 film strip on the Cricut. And we actually got 5 2x2 photos in that. Now, what I would like to do with it this time, instead of photos, because I don't have any more photos to add to this layout, I would like to use it as an interesting background element. I want to probably do a little bit of stenciling on that, and then have it just be something that I can overlap the photos and then maybe add some florals around it as an added interest. And so this video in this series is really going to focus on when little things make a big difference. So it's a very basic background with just the 6x12s and the two 1/2 by 12 pieces there. And it's a very simple background. And I want to add a lot of little details that don't take too much work, but they add up to a big difference and give your page a little wow. So I have this Limeade pattern paper piece that is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and I think I want to do a little bit of decorating in the background of the photos. I have this next piece, which I think it's about 3 3/4 by 2. Now, I should note that the 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 Limeade piece, honestly, less than an inch and a half by a 4 1/4 is going to show of that. So if you would like to conserve paper before you cut your paper, you really only need about an 1.5 inch by 4 1/4 of that piece. And then same with that lagoon piece. You really only need about an inch by a 3 3/4, 3 3/4, 3 3/4, 3 3/4. And so you could definitely trim that. And I'm actually going to end up pulling this up because I decide that I think we need to bring in a little bit of shortbread and toffee in there. At first, I want to really be able to save those strips that are off to the left under the bird that are embedded right into the page. I think they make a really nice, interesting element over to the left. And then I decide that the green, the limeade is sort of just like blending into the background and that we need a little bit more toffee. And I do have an extra strip of toffee that is 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 that I'm going to add to the back of that. I think that the photo really needs that toffee background also. So I'm going to add a 4 1/4 by a 6 1/4 photo mat to that photo. Now, two of these photos, the girls are wearing white. So Avery Jean has a white dress, and Ramsey Kate has a white dress, but then Hattie Elaine has a blue dress. So I thought perhaps I could put the two girls with the white dresses on the front, and then Hattie Elaine with the blue dress could be underneath the flip flap. And so I kind of am visualizing these photos just sort of being toggled kitty wampus from each other, and flip flaps don't have to be straight. They don't have to be boxy. So you can put a flip flap on at an angle just as easily as you can put a flip flap on in a straight box. So this way I have the two girls with the white on the front and then Hattie Elaine in the blue dress on the back. So what I do is I line up the photos on the front so that the photo mat will show evenly with both layers. Then I fold over the flap. Now I have an extra photo space underneath the flip flap, but I don't have a photo. So that means I'm going to have hidden journaling or something decorative under there instead of a photo. And so I really don't need journaling under the flip flap and journaling over to the right. So we may just do some decorative elements over there on that area where we don't have a photo on the right. So if you're following along with me, you actually would have the opportunity to add 2 more photos to this. You could actually get 7 photos on this layout, and I am using 6. Nope, you could get 8 photos on this layout, and I am using 6. So I'm loving this now, and I get such a tickle. I get so tickled about Avery Jean's photo there because she's like making her own pose, up, and she is really kind of energetic and a tomboy, and she isn't real like, it's almost like she's acting like a supermodel in that photo. And I just giggled and laughed because it's like a little sexy pose for her age, but she is totally not that personality at all. But I got a charge out of the photo and I'm going to use it. It's like, hey, strike a pose. And there she was. Now, again, I'm laughing because I have tried and tried and tried and tried to use this Limeade title. And I actually am close to using it on this one, but I feel like we need some linear movement down there on the right. I think it's going to serve it best to really kind of pull some embellishments over toward the right and make it a little longer and a little more linear over there instead of stopping that in a box by adding that. So now we have quite a few things to do treatments on. We have the 4x6 white daisy that's going to go under the flip flap on the left page. We have the film strip that we're just using as a background decorative element. And then we have the 4x4 white daisy that goes on the extra photo square on the right page. So of course, we're going to stay true to the rest of the workshop and do stenciling with the Skylark stencil. So I'm thinking that I just want to do a little leaf in the corner. And what we did on the previous 3 layouts is we used jade ink on the leaves, and then we came back over that with Limeade and did a little blurring, and I think that'll be perfect. And then I'm thinking that we haven't used a couple of the stamps yet on the Skylark stamp set. And there's kind of a, I have no idea what the word for that is, but it's kind of a flourish, but it's an icon, and it's not really a complete flourish because it doesn't go all the way across, but it's just like an interesting triangular element. And I think we could stamp that in the upper center in intense black, and then that leaves plenty of room in the center for some journaling. But I think we should use some of that Limeade and just go ahead and put some of that Limeade on the top, since we already have the Limeade out, and then we can stamp that little flourish icon over the top of the Limeade, and it's just going to make for an interesting journaling element. Now, I do end up adding some toffee to the edges of this piece to dirty it up a little bit and make it look a little bit more vintage, and so that the edges aren't quite so sharp. And this is just another one of those little tiny details that adds up to big results. All of these little tiny things, once they're added to a page, add up to big results. If you look at the heavy lifting, there's really no heavy lifting in the base of the layout. The base of the layout is so simple. The heavy lifting will be in all the little details, and those typically go relatively quick. It's just adding all those little details up to make a big result. So I'm just bringing out one of my scrap circles to do a little bit of stamping off. And I have that longer flourish. We used it on some plain cardstock pieces in, I believe it was layout number 1. And now we're going to pull it back in again. I try to use the stamps on the stamp set and the stencils and the other things that I pull in. I try to use them, if I'm going to pull them in, I try to use them as much as I can on other elements in all pages to really make the pages in the whole workshop coordinate with each other. So what I've done is I've done second generation stamping across the top with the flourish. Then we're going to put the title. Then I put that same second generation flourish a little bit closer to the edge, and then I did it a third time a little bit more closer to the edge, and then I'm coming over the top of that with a little bit of Limeade, and then I'm going to dirty it up with a little bit of toffee. And here is where I decide to go ahead and dirty up the journal 4x6 piece as well, so that it's sort of cohesive throughout. And I just think that little toffee hue all the way around the edges is going to be just perfect. I think it was in the last video, layout number 3 in the series, that I talked about toffee being a big go-to for makers everywhere and customers. And a lot of times I get customers that will ask me which ink pads are the most popular because they want to invest in some, but they don't want to invest in all of them at once. And toffee is something that I feel you will use over and over and over and over. So I am going to again add that toffee to the journaling piece. I'll do that off camera so you can see what that looks like. It really adds a lot. So as far as the film strip, there's really so much that we can do. I really think we're going to be okay if we just do leaf flourishes like we have been, if we just do some jade leaf flourishes and we just cover those with limeade and blur those up a little bit with limeade, I think it's going to be enough, because the busy florals that we're going to add and all the extra bits that we're going to add is going to be busy enough that just having that really pretty soft stenciling in the background on the film strip and having it sort of broken apart on the film strip is going to be just enough. So I'm just coming in and I'm randomly adding leaves to the film strip. Now, some people will make fun of me because they'll say, you do all this work on the background and then you cover it up. And yes, they are right. That is true. So much of the background work is not so that you see every single piece of a background. What makes it pretty is the things that peek through. It's about the layers and a little bit that's pleasing to the eye that sort of peeks through here, and then it peeks through there, and then it's covered up here, and then it peeks through up there. And it just is so gorgeous. If you think about a bouquet of flowers, you don't see every single flower separately because there's leaves and there's little garnishes and little sprigs and little baby's breath, and there's all of this stuff in a bouquet, and certain things get covered up and certain things peek through, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And that's what I think about when I do layering on a page. I think about a bouquet of flowers, how you're going to have a base layer, even in a painting, is maybe even a better example. You have this base layer in a painting, and then another layer over the top, and then another layer over the top, and then another layer over the top, until you get to the very fine detail at the top. And it really shows just so many different layers of color and texture and uniqueness. And I really love that. So don't stress when you work on a background and a lot of it, like the film strip, is going to be covered, because you're going to see bits and pieces of it under the doily. So now I've grabbed the white fancy doily, and I just, again, want tiny little bits of it to show. Now, if you wanted to, you could trim off the top and you could trim off the side and then use the lower left piece somewhere else if you wanted to. I ended up putting the whole thing under, but it wouldn't be uncommon for me to trim just the bits that I need out of that. So I've roughed up the edges of that with some really, really light-handed Lagoon ink, and then I've come back in over the edges with toffee, and there's just that little mix of Lagoon and toffee that's showing on the edges. Now we can grab our junk gypsy tray. I think we are ready to embellish. So I'm going to pull out those Isabella scrapbooking stamp and thin cuts, which are the florals. And if you remember from video 1, I just did a little bit of rubbing with a blending brush. Some of them are limeade, some of them are Lagoon, and some of the leaf bits and the lime bits are jade. And I did go in great detail on how I created those bits in layout number 1. And again, it's linked in the description. So now I'm just looking at ways to create a visual triangle. And so I think I want a little bit on the lower left and under, over that flip flap, maybe under that flip flap, over that flip flap. And then in the upper right of Ramsey Kate, over the film strip. So this is where the film strip is going to be covered, and you did do some treatments under there, but it's okay. I like to go ahead and treat it all, and if some of it is covered, that's okay with me. I love the little bits of flavor that are just going to stick out. Okay, so I'm just going to do some layering of those bits there, and then the third element of the triangle will be over kind of in the lower middle of the right side of the right page. And I think that's going to be just perfect. So you're going to look from the lower left across the photos to the upper right, and then back down to the lower and middle of the right page to draw your eye across both photos on the left and across all 3 photos on the right. I think it's going to be perfect. Now, if I didn't mention this before, Gosh, I just totally lost my train of thought here. So now I'm going to go with a couple circular pieces. We're kind of boxy. We have a lot of squares. So I'm going to grab some more rounded stickers, and that just softens the whole layout up. When you have a lot of edges, straight edges and boxes on a layout, you want to bring in some of the elements from sticker sheets and from die cut sheets. You want to be sure that they are more rounded, and then of course the flowers are more rounded as well. So I love that, tying in that bird sticker, since we have the blue lagoon Skylark on the left. We'll pull in the little brown Skylark on the right, and then we have that little rounded bird cage for some height. I feel like instead of having that cluster just kind of chop off, we can pull the eye up toward the photo with the bird cage and then add some florals around. And don't worry, we're going to be bringing in the black accents. We're going to be bringing in some of the jade and limeade leaves to finish off those floral clusters. We're just going to get placement right now with the floral clusters and see if we can make some of those work. Now, I do have the small butterflies from the layered butterflies set, and I have some die cuts. I have a little frame, I have some little stars, some little starbursts, some little flowers, and then in the sticker sheet, we still have all kinds of little stickers and bits. So let's say that you want this layout to be a little more neutral, a little less florals. So layout number 3, if you tuned in, we made it a little more masculine for Waylon James. We didn't use any of the Isabella florals. We only used leaves and stickers and die cuts. We didn't use any florals. So you could easily do that on this layout as well. And everywhere that I have florals, there's so many stickers left from the sticker sheet. And there's also lots of leaves that you can create with the leaves from the Isabella collection. There's lots of extra things on the Skylark stamp set, like the dragonflies. Dragonflies go great for neutrals. So you definitely don't have to use floral on this. I'm choosing to use floral on this because I'm finishing out all the girls, the little girl layouts from this series of photos. So I think that I'm starting to love this. I'm liking the clusters. We're getting some height, and we're adding some detail. I want to pull in some of the jade color with some leaves over there. And maybe kind of straighten out that little floral cluster. I didn't want the lemon part of that floral cluster to show. I just wanted the flower and the leaf flourish on the top of that to show. And so I'm kind of strategically arranging it so just the bits that I want to show are showing. And I'm loving that cluster on top of the title. And even though these girls are sisters, they definitely are friends. They play together and they organize their activities together, and they really, really enjoy each other. So I feel like that sticker, Life is Better with Friends, goes really, really well, even though they're siblings. I love Laugh Out Loud. She is sticking her tongue out. Hattie Elaine is sticking her tongue out in that photo up there. And I feel like Laugh Out Loud is absolutely perfect on top, but I just want to get some closure up there by having those leaves come up over the top so that it kind of has a place for that sticker to rest. And then now it's just playing. I struggle a little bit with some of the smaller bits. It takes me a little longer than it probably should, but I'm just kind of playing around with the black bits. So we have black die cuts from the die cut shapes, the black die cut shapes. We also have black leaves from the Sprigs and Leaves thin cut set. And we have 2 different leaves that I've created in black off of that. And so I'm just kind of experimenting, and I'm not happy. Like, there's something missing in this. We need a little height up there, and I'm not quite sure. It's not really doing it for me, trying to get the height out of those leaf bits. Even I pulled several of those leaf bits apart because I felt like that would maybe give me the height that I needed and I could kind of stack them on top of each other, but it isn't quite working for me. So a lot of times when that happens, I typically just have to walk away and work on a different section of the layout. And by the time I come back around to that section, I usually kind of have it figured out. So in the upper right corner on the right page, I added sticker banners to the banner that was embedded. So the Lagoon stripe banner is embedded in the paper already. And then I added the wood grain banner and the limeade banner. I just trimmed that limeade banner down a little bit and then placed the This Is Happiness sticker over the top because part of that, the little words underneath that were embedded in the paper ended up getting covered. So then I found the really delicate leaves that are from the die cut shapes, and I think I can use those. Probably not where I have them right now. I'm still struggling with the height over there. And I finally end up using a frame from the die cuts, and I only use like an L-shaped part of the frame, so you could actually snip that apart, and then you would have the other L. So you would have the lower right and the bottom that you could snip off because I'm going to use the upper portion and the lower left portion. There I do it and I place it there and I'm happy. I just don't know what it is. It's just a small element of height that was needed there. So it doesn't feel like it's just sort of stuck it like a lump in one spot. And then I thought maybe some of those little black leaf pieces, I could bring some black color in and put those little flourished pieces underneath the Skylark bird. So it has a few little flourishes and things. And then this little piece, lagoon piece, was torn off of a zip strip. And I thought maybe I could use that up there, but I think I have enough words. I don't think I need that because I want to use Sweetest Memory over on the right side of that little sweet photo of Ramsey Kate. And I think I can use one of the fancy butterflies up there. I don't know about that really sharp lagoon. The black isn't really working for me, but that lagoon is a little too sharp because if you look at the bird, it's a little more of a distressed lagoon. If you look at the doily, it's distressed lagoon. If you look at the florals that we made out of the Isabella florals, they're kind of a distressed lagoon. They're a lighter lagoon and they're not so stark bright. And so I think if I took that lagoon butterfly and I dirtied it up with some toffee, I think that would really serve it well, and I think it would tie it in. And I'm so glad that I just went with the leaf flourishes on the film strip. I mean, don't you think it just tied in perfectly? If we had done a lot more on that and added more stamping, I think that in combination with the clusters of florals would have been like way too much. So I think it's just right now. I love that we put that in the background. It's all about the tiny little details in the background that makes the layout as a whole really, really beautiful. I love adding all the little details. And honestly, once you kind of get figured out certain themes, like once you do the first layout in a series, whatever you've chosen to use in the first layout, so should it be stenciling, second generation stamping, the rubbing of the florals, whatever it is that you're using in the first layout in the series, it's so easy to carry those techniques through the entire series and really make it feel cohesive. And it also makes you feel so satisfied that you've gotten so much use out of those same materials in all of the layouts throughout the series. So in all 5 layouts, we get to use similar techniques, but different, similar, but we're changing them up just a little bit. So I'm getting happy. I love this part when I'm getting happy. We just need a little bit of decorative element, a few little die cuts to add a few little foofs here. So I've added the starburst and the star, and I'm loving it. I'm so happy with layout number 4 in this series, and I hope that you are happy too. And that means that our next video that will be coming up in a couple days, probably 2 or 3 days, 4 days at the most, is the last layout in the Skylark series, and then I will be offering a cheat sheet option with all the measurements, the supply list, and full color photos. And so when we get to the end, the next layout is going to be a single page focal layout, and it's going to focus on one single photo that I have left in this series of Ramsey Kate. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hit like, subscribe, share, follow, and shoot me those comments. You know, those comments make me feel so good, and they keep me rocking and rolling and keeping these videos coming for you. Thanks so much for watching. Happy scrapping, and have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.